Hi, I'm J. Rachel Edison.
And I'm Miles Stokes.
And we're the hosts of Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men, a weekly podcast all about the ins, the outs, and the retcons of our very favorite superhero soap opera.
We're also the hosts of Rachel and Miles Review the X-Men,
which you're watching right now,
where we talk about the X books that come out each week.
This week we're looking at the books of November 11th, 2015. We've got two of them. Let's go for it. First up, we have All-New Wolverine #1, written by Tom Taylor, drawn by David Lopez and David Navarro, whose name I may be butchering, and colored by Nathan Fairbairn. Wow.
Who saw this coming?
I kinda did.
I didn't at all.
This is so good, y'all. This is the first book of the all-new lineup. I mean, it's only the second one we've gotten to, but this is one that I recommend absolutely and without reservation.
Totally. I mean, we knew there was going to be a Wolverine book, well, as it turns out, 2 Wolverine books in the Post-Secret Wars X-Men line, because there always has to be.
You know what? Let's be fair. There are not actually 2 Wolverine books. There's a Wolverine book and there's Old Man Logan, because this book leaves no question that there is one Wolverine in the Marvel Universe, and it is Laura Kinney.
Yeah. She has taken up that legacy in a way that I don't think anybody else could. I mean, we were talking about this earlier, like, who could have replaced Wolverine? You know, you have a lot of different clawed options. This is the only one that makes any sense.
It's not just about it's not replacing Wolverine. She is Wolverine. It's replacing Logan as Wolverine. And again, if there's any character who's earned that legacy, it's she. I've talked a lot about how my feelings about Wolverine have really changed over time. He started out as a character I really liked, and I just got frustrated with him and the degree of saturation, the extent to which I felt like a lot of the meaningfulness, what was meaningful about his character, had been replaced by ubiquity. This book and this character, this version of Wolverine, takes me back to everything that originally spoke to me about that character, about Wolverine as a symbol, about Wolverine as a hero.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I like about it is it's not just Laura going through the same motions as Wolverine. It's not just a retelling of the Wolverine story with a teenaged female character. This acknowledges everything that's come before, and it acknowledges the fact that Laura has been there for the last lot of it, has learned from what Logan did right, from what Logan did wrong, and has decided who she wants to be.
Wolverine as a character, in terms of what he represents as a superhero, is all about self-determination, choosing to become who you want to be rather than who people tried to make you into. And if this book, you mentioned it's a legacy, it's about a legacy. And I think X-23 has so thoroughly earned that mantle and stepped into that role in a way that the original Logan had kind of outgrown.
Absolutely. And if you do not agree that X-23 had stepped into that role, had earned it, then I would refer you to Figure 1, the last few years' worth of her appearances. This has been built step by step, brick by brick, and it was almost inevitable. It was almost inevitable that yellow and blue was going to be worn by Laura.
Now, we've talked a bit about narrative justification, but I want to talk some about the art in this comic because it's really important to me, and it's really groundbreaking. We normally don't show panels as we're talking about issues. We just show the panel of the week. I'm going to break that rule a little bit because I want you to actually see what I'm talking about when I talk about how Laura is drawn as Wolverine, because she is drawn as Wolverine. Look at these poses. Look at the framing and the way she appears in and dominates panels. Look at the way her body is drawn relative to the reader and relative to other characters. This is how you draw Wolverine. This is not how you draw the girl character. The way female characters in comics, there's sort of an obligation to draw them pretty, above functional, even in fight scenes, even when they're fighters. And artists have moved away from that some, but I think never in a superhero book as concretely as they do here.
And what I especially like is that Laura is drawn as a character who you fully believe is a mostly genetic clone of Logan. Logan was as wide as he was tall, and Laura, well, she's not quite that, but she's built. She's immensely strong.
Yeah, she's stocky and muscular.
Yeah.
And she's traditionally been drawn as willowy, and it's always been really weird, because again, that doesn't look like Wolverine, and she's supposed to be a clone, and what the hell even. But yeah, this is great. This is so good. And Angel is so good in this. Oh my God. Angel is her boyfriend's support character, and he's perfect.
This is referring specifically to the younger Angel, not the older one with no memories and metal wings, etc., etc.
No, this is the younger one with fire wings, the time-displaced one.
Yes.
X-Men!
But you make an excellent point, because, we do have a love interest in this book. We often do when we have female characters, but he's very much the sidekick, the secondary character. That's not to say he's not an important character with agency of his own, but the dynamic that they're written with acknowledges that Wolverine is the main character, and she should be in the spotlight.
Yeah, this is her story, and it's her story in a way that, again, thematically really well underlines, you know, those things about agency, about self-determination, and about identity coming out of the Weapon X program. I don't want to spoil too much, but this is exactly what a Wolverine book should be. It hits every note that I was hoping it would, a bunch beyond. You should be reading this comic.
Next, we have Secret Wars number 7, written by Jonathan Hickman, with art by Asad Ribic and colors by Yves Sporchina.
Before we jump into the review, I should note that the rhythmic pounding that may or may not be recording along with the video is our washing machine, which may or may not be about to explode.
So if this detonates, if you just see and us fade out and the video ends, then that's probably why. How we would have posted the video after that happened, I don't know, but we'll see what we can do. With our dying breath, we shall post it.
If we have a last wish to carry out, it's that you read All-New Wolverine number 1.
Right. That said, segue, speaking of last wishes, everything is falling the hell apart in Secret Wars, and it's kind of awesome.
Yeah, man. The Battle World has gone full Squaresoft. They are really taking down God.
Yeah, and it's really cool seeing the various villainous armies of Doom, or, well, heroic armies from certainly Doom's perspective and those of much of the characters of the world, seeing them torn apart by infighting as the heroes, led in part by the surviving heroes from Earth 616 and Earth 1610, start to really get their stuff together.
Not just the heroes from 616 and 1610, and that's one of the things that makes it more interesting. No spoilers, but... yeah, if you've been following the series, you know some interesting alliances have arisen, and boy, do they stay interesting.
They really do. But it's just... so Asad Ribic did the God Butcher story of Thor, written by Jason Aaron, one of my favorite Thor stories of all time. And one of the things that happened whenever I read an issue of that arc is I would get chills at some point during the issue. And I think a lot of that may in fact have been Asad Ribic's art, because in this issue, that comes back hard.
The pacing of the story relative to the art works really well, too. Hickman is very good at reveals and at making beats count. And he's done it before, and he really does it here. I mean, I suspect we may be thinking of the same panel if the line is the dead.
Yes, well, that's one of them.
Yeah, that's one of many. And, man, it's good. The stakes feel higher and higher and higher, and I keep expecting that to sort of trail off. But it doesn't. It just keeps rising. And
one of the ways it accomplishes that I really enjoy is that this is where a lot of the Secret Wars miniseries that have ended start to really come together. If you've been following very many Secret Wars miniseries, you know that a lot of them do end with ambiguously tying into a big thing happening on Battleworld.
We talked about that. I think we talked about that specifically, or I talked about it mostly relative to Siege.
Yes, and that's certainly a big deal here, although it seems like it'll play out more next issue. And that's really cool. So, you know, there were a few events that occurred that referenced books that I'd been following, like Thor's, and a few that didn't, that referenced books I had not been following, like whichever one has the Maestro and all the Hulks. And that's cool. It makes this series feel like part of the larger world that it is, like the centerpiece of all of these little splintered factions of reality. And again, we said this with issue 1, this is how you do an event series, and this issue shows us another facet of how to do that right. You know, you mentioned that this is the culmination, and you see lead-ins from a lot of other series, and something that's impressed me very much with this is how well it continues to stand alone despite that. I imagine there are things that we would catch that we haven't if we had been following those other series. But I'm also having no trouble following this book. There's stuff that I notice because of this other Secret Wars books I've been reading, but none of it is essential. It's all just sort of Easter eggs and cool callbacks. And that's really nice. One of the things I like most about Secret Wars as an event really is how granular it is, how much you can really pick and choose what to follow or not to follow. I really, really appreciate that, because I hate massive sprawling crossovers, which is ironic considering Secret Conversions. We'll talk about that afterwards. Yes, we will.
But I mean, that's kind of a satire of those things too, so I'm allowed. But yeah, it's really followable. It absolutely is. That said, if you're just jumping in now, don't. It's not going to make any sense at all. But if you've been following from the start, this continues to be just as strong as it started out. And if you haven't been, pick it up in trade paperback later, pick it up in digital now, but this is something you do want to read. This is something that takes everything cool about the Marvel Universe, puts it all in a jar, shakes it up to see what happens, and comes out with something really, really cool. So that's one series started and one escalated. Of the 2 miles, what would you say is our pick of the week?
Well, as strong as Secret Wars number 7 was, we have to go for All-New Wolverine number 1. It's an incredible issue, an incredible first issue, an incredible take on a new character. It's basically an incredible everything. If you have any interest in Wolverine or X-Men or comics, just do yourself a favor, buy this book.
This is the best Wolverine in decades. And you know what I'm going to say right now? This is my new definitive Wolverine. Laura Kinney is Wolverine, the end.
Mm-hmm. What is our panel of the week?
Well, it's funny you should mention that. This is also from All-New Wolverine number 1. And this is the panel, this is the moment, the first reveal of Laura as Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
And if there was ever any question in readers' minds, ever any question in Marvel's minds about whether this was for real, I mean, this page for me told me everything I needed to know about the book.
So that's it for this week. Thanks for watching.
If you like what you've seen here, please check out our podcast, Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men. New episodes go up every Sunday at rachelandmiles.com, also on iTunes and Stitcher. And I think we've got a really special one this week.
We do indeed. We have our second ever live episode and the first ever live continuity episode. This is from Vegas Valley Comic Book Festival at the Clark County Library in Las Vegas. We talk all about X-Men Annual number 3 with everyone's favorite furry underwear-clad, paper poster board, lightning bolt throwing space barbarian, Archon. It is a really fun episode. You definitely want to listen to this one.
That podcast, these video reviews, and everything at rachelandmiles.com are brought to you, as always, by our rad Patreon subscribers. We are an entirely listener-supported and ad-free project. Those are the folks who make it possible, and if you would like to join their august ranks, you can do that at the link either above or below this video, depending on where you're watching.
Mm-hmm. In the meantime, we will continue next week with more new era of Marvel. Hopefully something as good as All-New Wolverine, but if not, we can just bask in how amazing it was.
I'd be cool with just rereading it again.
Fair enough.
And again. And it's so good though. Like I know we already spent like 5.5 minutes on it, but it's so good.
It is One thing we didn't talk much about was like all the cool action-y stuff. Like
right. Oh my god, the action staging is so solid.
She cuts a drone apart.
Yes.
She rides it and she cuts it and then it explodes.
That's the scene with that, and which was very us.
How can she be adorable and murdery so much at the same time?
Just like Logan can.
Just like Logan.
But better.
Right.
Better than Logan. So much better. Oh my god, she's so good.
Like a giant kitten. A giant sharp-clawed adamantium healing factor kitten with a traumatic past.
I feel like you're kind of infantilizing her here.
What? No.
The kitten thing. I don't know.
Kittens can be old. Old man kitten. It's like Old Man Logan, but they're all kittens. It'd be great.